Cool. Oh, sorry, I've got my windows all mixed up. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cluster API Provider AWS office hours on Monday, the 4th of April, 2022. Just a reminder that we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct, so please be kind to each other. I've put a link into the chat window with the meeting notes. If you could add yourselves as attending and add any agenda items that you would like to talk about as well. We're fairly light on the agenda items today, so it might be a quick meeting, although last time I said that, it took the whole hour. Just a reminder that if you want to talk, if you could use the raise hands feature in Zoom, which is accessed via the reactions button. Cool. So if this is your first meeting, feel free to unmute yourself and say hello. If it's not, you don't have to. I don't see many new faces.
Hi, Richard. Vibhor this side. Yeah. So, hi, everyone. My name is Vibhor. I am an intern at VMware. I'm trying to contribute to Kappa and Kapi projects after my working hours. Really excited to meet you all and contribute further. Thank you.
Hi, Vibhor. Yeah, I've seen you on the some of the issues as well, so it's really good that you joined. Brilliant. I don't think there's anyone else, is there? No.
Do you want to share your screen, or I can share?
I can do it, yeah. Let me share. Well done, Steph. Cool. You should be able to see that all right. Brilliant. So let me get a list of the participants as well so I can see any hands raised. Yeah, so we don't have any PSAs. So we can move on to the action items from 2 weeks ago. So the first one was a poll about EKS and cluster class requirements to use now. I don't know if that was that you, Winnie, or Sadef?
Yeah, I haven't attended CAPZ meeting for this. Oh, sorry, yeah, I was looking on the second item.
Yeah, yeah. The first one was I don't remember seeing a poll go out into like the community Slack for the last couple of weeks, so it's pre-marked that as a to do. Yeah. Cool. I'll mark as to do. So yeah, so therefore you just said you didn't go to the CAPZ meeting, is that right?
Yeah, I did not.
Cool.
So I think this is for writing the proposal for managed Kubernetes. I was just gonna go for having someone from Azure to contribute to the proposal that we are gonna have, yeah, but didn't get a chance. We can simply ping them on the Slack as well.
Yeah, cool. That makes sense. On a related note, I mean, I don't know, Winnie, did you want to talk about the discussions we had last week related to that while we're on this topic?
Oh, you mean the managed Kubernetes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know what we want to discuss, but Richard and I have been writing a proposal for managed Kubernetes in CAPI, and we actually plan to present it to CAPI community like next week. So I don't know what what else you want to discuss, Richard?
No, it was just more, I guess, of an awareness because we were on that topic in the action items. So yeah, I guess more if anyone's interested in that to reach out.
So for this proposal, do we have anyone in the CAPZ team that also contributes or not?
Not yet. Not yet. So we do still need to reach out to them.
Yeah, maybe they can just review, but just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to give an idea, in that proposal, we decided to take the approach of using CapG as an example, and go and documenting all, a number of different options and the pros and cons of each. So the way that we currently do it with the one kind, the way that Azure currently do it with the two kinds, but with the cluster that doesn't, is just a pass through, and a couple of other options that are adhere more to the original intentions of the infra cluster. But yeah, we do need to get reach out to CapC. So the next action item for a couple of weeks ago was to go over the backlog and add features to roadmap discussion topic. We'll go over it in the next office hours to prioritize. So we need to add Sedef, I saw that you added a number of items to that.
Yeah, I went through quite a few backlog items. So we are in good shape, I think, in the discussions topics. We can go over them. Or
Okay.
at least start updating our roadmap in the document, and then prioritize depending on, I mean, we didn't get much feedback on the discussion yet, so we might wanna mention it on the Slack channel for more visibility. I'm not sure.
Yep. Yep. Cool. So the next item was following up on the discussions we had about moving unexposed things to the internal package, or unexported things to the internal package. I wasn't in the last office hours, so I'm not sure the context of this item, which is this one here. Does anyone have any context on that?
Yeah, so this was mainly getting some feedback from both Azure folks and the community about if that really makes sense for us to move things to internal packaging. And then after a couple of comments, I'd opt for that. It has some benefits to follow whatever cluster API is doing in terms of it will simply Golang has a feature that will block users to add that /internal folder to their project. So, I mean, it's a good thing to add, but at this point, not quite necessary. So this is about discussing if we wanna prioritize it or not.
Cool. Does anyone on the call have an opinion on this? No. Okay. Well, I guess we can discuss async, can't we, in Slack or and because I know there was some I don't know if you raised the concern or someone else did about a month ago about just the history of being a bit more difficult, but I can't remember the context of that. Cool. So next item on the agenda we talked about during the review of the action items. So next one is me. So just to let everyone know that had a meeting today with a couple of engineers from the EKS Cuttle team who implemented IPv6 into EKS Cuttle. So they are actually keen on contributing the IPv6 support to Kappa. So they have a lot of knowledge having gone through this with EKS Cuttle. So I chatted with them today about it, and they are going to write a proposal of how it would be done. So this would only be IPv6, and it wouldn't be anything related to dual stack at this stage. Go for it, Sedef.
Are those engineers that are assigned to the issue or not?
Yeah, I added them to it. So that's Gergely and Nikki.
Okay, sounds good. And this is gonna be supported both in Kappa managed clusters and EKS managed clusters. That's right?
Yes. So we did have that discussion whether we did it in one or the other first. But when we had a look at it, most of the API changes are probably within the network. What do we call it? Network config. So that's shared across both sides. So we should get most of the changes on both sides of the provider. But yeah, we will have to do some other stuff related to the KubeADM side of the provider.
Yeah, that was gonna be my point too. But I mean, if there are bits and pieces that we need extra in Kappa managed side to do, as long as we have those written in a proposal, we can do it partially. But yeah, I think it will be great if we can think both sides at the same time in a single proposal for consistency.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's some interesting things that also came up that we're probably going to. Why I suggested that they put in the proposal for like a follow-up, which was like bring your own IPs, so we don't have to deal with IP address pools for IPv6. So I thought potentially those things could follow on in a later installment. But yeah, again, if anyone has any opinions on that. It'll be good to know that, especially when we put the proposal up. Go for it, Sadef.
So this bring your own IPs, is it the AWS managed IPAM or is it different?
It's bringing an IPv6 pool that you own into AWS.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff you have to do extra. Go for it, Yasin.
So is it something like you have, say, an info blocks or something like that on-prem, and do you want to bring in some IP pool from there, or is it like from marketplace, or is it like a native AWS cider that you want to use?
So I personally don't know anything about it, so we can get the engineers that were on the call, but the way they described it to me is you own those IPv6 addresses. You want to bring those into AWS and have AWS give those out to your instances, etc.
Okay, then they might want to also reach out to the IPAM proposal folks. So that's likely to serve also this use case.
Yeah, cool. That's a good point. Appreciate that. Cool. So next on the agenda is Winnie.
Yeah, so I'm actually start looking into this issue I linked. So we currently have only one cluster class based E2E test, the cluster class like quick start, but we're actually looking into running E2E test with cluster class. And I've been looking into this, and so I've been actually debating like how to do this. So initially I thought like I will create a like different directory and like start copying some issues, but I think that's not very efficient. So what I'm thinking right now is I want to actually use existing E2E test, but use some type of like variable to just change the flavor. So like say like if I define a variable called like use cluster class test, then if it's true, then we run the test using the cluster class flavor. Otherwise, we run as it is. So my question is this configurable in our test grid? So running the test using this variable. So one set of test will run with existing E2E test, the other with the cluster class.
Go for it, Sadef.
Yeah, so my question is, do we really wanna exactly replicate the existing set of end-to-end tests, or do we wanna combine bunch of tests together for the sake of time that takes end-to-end tests? So we might, yeah, if we are gonna combine, then actually we don't need to deflect to switch, but if it does, if replicating exactly the flavors makes sense, then yeah, we can discuss.
Yes, so I think this will require some iteration and refactoring over time. But my plan is initially, so we have about like 20 E2E tests. And I actually look at all of them and picked a few that it makes sense to port to cluster class. So probably I will actually make them to run with cluster class first. But like later, if we think like we want to combine them together, that we can do. Considering that like we are running this test separately, I'm not sure if we want to do that yet. So yeah, my plan is I wanna create flavor for cluster class and run them for like this like specific test. But we can like change the direction like later.
Yassine?
Yeah, I guess it's more of a question to the group, but like ultimately cluster class is, and down the road, cluster class is going to become one of the main ways to interact with clusters. So it might make sense I don't know if it might make sense in the beginning to actually, split both, or at least make like tests reusable in the sense that in your config file for the test EAEs, you can supply like flavored templates to run ADE against, and like you can have cluster class as a periodic job. Then we can graduate as like a blocking. At least that's what we've been striving towards, like in CAPV. So far, it seems to be like that. At least the tests that we have are self-contained enough that you can switch just the template and run them.
So Yashin, so to clarify, so CAPV is already running the test using like flavor, cluster class flavor or not, so they can switch them?
No, they're like the tests that are in there are reusable enough to actually change the template. So it's not already the case, but it's like it's easy enough to actually do. So there shouldn't be like a refactoring to do there. So yeah, I would defer to like Sadef on the plans on when to like if like we want to keep both as blocking. But my understanding at least was that like cluster class was going to become the main interaction point for creating clusters.
Sadef?
Yeah, so in our initial discussions with Winnie, we were planning to run these cluster class and regular cluster tests separately with different periodicity. So since we are writing these tests from scratch, and since eventually cluster class will become the main way to interact with it, I'd prefer to do things separately so that we can deprecate the old tests over time. So it will be easy to deprecate. So we can design fresh. We can only add important use cases. By this way, we have 20 tests. Most of them actually could be combined into single test. So we can actually reduce that testing time wherever makes sense. And we started doing that. Instead of when there's a new feature, instead of adding a new test, we are trying to add the existing ones, but there is no we should have a pattern for this, and every test should be very clear about what it is testing. I see this as an opportunity to regroup those use cases into less number of tests. So, but it is my opinion.
Yeah,
Cool.
we can continue the discussion on the issue. Yeah, to clarify.
Brilliant. Cool. So therefore, Abhinav, you've got the next item.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So recently, we have been a bit more puzzled about whether or not we can use, or if we should use bots for our purpose of, let's say, the automation of building and publishing AMIs. So in case of bots, if we are using GitHub applications, we'll need to provide them privileges that would have the access to the entire repository. So in that scenario, there might be some cases, let's say if that there is a specific developer for the application, then they'll need to stick around for a while for the entire project. Or I'm not sure if we can migrate the permissions of the application to other users. And secondly, there are actually two ways to implement the bots themselves. First would be the application method, as I've mentioned already. But the other one could be that we create an account instead of an application, and then we use the personal access token of that account within the GitHub API SDKs. And that's apparently what the Kubernetes CI robot is actually using. And we can also leverage that. So in that method, we will have the option of actually maintaining the personal access tokens as well as the access of the user itself across the across all the reviewers as well as the maintainers. But then once again, it would become quite a responsibility for each and every one of the maintainers as well as the reviewers to not kind of either lose or reveal that token anywhere else, because then that could potentially compromise the entire workflow on the repository. Apart from it, I think we still have the GitHub Actions option, but it's again tricky because I could not find much implementations other than the actions that had been built directly on top of the GitHub API SDKs themselves. So I saw a few repositories which had pull request implementations, like automatic pull request implementations by using either Python or JavaScript or the Golang SDKs for GitHub API. So instead of relying on those, I kind of find it more appropriate for us to instead implement the GitHub API SDKs within our own source code. But then again, that would increase our scope for maintenance, because there would be a lot more stuff to actually manage along the time, as and when the GitHub API itself is kind of refactored in the future. But yeah, I think we might need some more inputs over here. Personally, I would prefer bots, but again, GitHub Actions I don't think there's anything necessarily bad in using GitHub Actions, but ultimately, because we still need to create our own scripts for these tasks, I personally, I'm not sure what Sedef's input is here. Sedef, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, thanks for the summary, Abhinav. So we were discussing with Richard. I wanted to learn from his experience, because there are lots of use of bots in his repo. So I'm a little bit worried about having a bot and having credentials for it. So if we can get away with not creating a user or a bot, I would prefer that, so that it will be easy. So we wanna avoid creating a new repository for a GitHub action, and we wanna avoid creating bots or users. Is there a way that you can think of, Richard?
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you can. I meant to test it the other day when we were chatting, but I was wondering. So you can obviously give a GitHub action write access to the repo, without, via the auto-generated GitHub token. But I didn't actually test what it actually means by write, whether when it says write, can I create a PR with that? So I meant to have a look at that. And I'm just trying to find now. WeWorks, we have a GitHub action that runs. It does something similar. It checks upstream for something in one of the AWS repos if there's a new release, and then it creates a PR for us to keep our fork up to date. So I need to check that. I can check that as well, how we do that, if that would help.
Yeah, definitely. So that GitHub action has its own repo though, right? So
no, so there's another one I literally just thought of now when we were talking. So I need to find that. So that doesn't have it. I think that runs actually. I don't know. I need to check. But it does something very similar to what we're discussing. So it on a periodic basis, it checks for something and then creates a pull request as a result. So yeah, I need to check whether the GitHub action is where that's being run.
okay, that will be great. Yeah, thanks.
I can take that as an action item if you want, and I'll check that after the office hours.
I have a question. So there is one PR open today itself regarding this GitHub action. So is it related to this or?
Oh, what PR?
Not really. That is something related to Dependabot that creates our dependency updates.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Abhinav, a quick question. You mentioned you prefer a bot, and when you talk about that, do you mean as a GitHub application or as a bot user?
No, as a user, because
As a user.
application one can require like a central point of contact for that source.
So basically, as the KCI user type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's using the same, and I think Knative also have their own PRAO implementation, and that uses I think the user bot itself instead of an application bot.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I can follow up on that one after the call. Vibor, did you want to go next before we get to the roadmap discussion?
Yes, sure. So I was working on this PR and I need to validate the tags that are being created for various resources, right? So I went through the list of limitations and the checks that I need to do. All the checks can be implemented, but there's one check that I've also written in the document. I need some guidance regarding that how can I implement a check for that? Yeah. So you can see the document I have, yeah.
Where's the? Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Where's that gone? That's
Go back to the office hours meeting document.
Yeah. Oh, you put it here. Yeah, put it here. Yeah. Cool. Oh, okay.
So even if the question was like, even if we decide what is the consistent or what we follow, like we follow the camel case. So the value of the tag should be cost center with CNC capital. But how would I know while iterating the list of tags that, yeah, this letter should be capital or that letter should be capital? That's the main concern. Yeah.
Steph, go for it.
So yeah, I think an easy way to do it with webhooks. We had a similar issue, validation issue in Ignition PR about this, and yeah, we solved it with Ignition. Contributors solved it with webhooks. So that's my own comment.
Yeah, it's a difficult problem, isn't it, to work out where to put the capitalization. Yeah, I get. Yeah, there are packages that do that, aren't there? But
yeah, Open API validation. I'm not sure if it validates the slice items.
yeah,
We can add a regex there, but I'm not sure if it will go over the slice.
yeah, and Vibor, so it says here you've got to decide on a strategy. So do you have any thoughts on whether when they install Kappa, whether they, people say we want to use lowercase or we want to use camel or whatever, or do you think that we as Kappa be opinionated and say they must all be lowercase? Yeah. I don't know. Does anyone else have an opinion on that? I guess it's like, do we be opinionated on it, or do we allow the user to specify that strategy at install time? I guess we can discuss on. You don't have to. We can take it as async if. I would say, I said anything is if we are opinionated, but you can pretty much guarantee that it won't meet someone else's needs. And they'll if we say it must be lowercase, someone will want it in uppercase.
Yeah, and this is a breaking change. So
True.
I'm not sure which release we wanna merge this one.
So it's only a recommendation, this part, isn't it? So it's just, they say it's best practice. So they won't, you can still have a tag, you can still create the tag, can't you? It's just saying that you should have some consistency. Whereas
maybe a documentation with the guideline if we cannot handle this in the code.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we could do that, can we? To get around that. Cool. Yeah. Brilliant. Are there any more agenda items just for this before we move on to the roadmap discussion? No, cool. So how did we, Sadef, have you got any opinions on how we approach this? Because there's quite a lot of items here.
Yeah, so should we do per release planning? So I added everything that we ever discussed here. So how about I divide them in terms of the discussions that we have on the issue themselves in the document, in our documentation, and then we go and move, remove, add, remove per release planning. So I can take this async if that will be helpful.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Also, I think it will help to prioritize things based on staffing. So if there are assignees on the feature, we can safely prioritize those. So I'll be careful about this when I create the feature roadmap, per release roadmap. Yeah.
I guess, did we want to do a separate planning session as well? Or for the roadmap?
We can piggyback to the officers if that, or we can extend this.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, piggyback, that's fine. Cool. So that is, I guess, the end of the agenda items. So did Did we want to do any? Do we want to look at any of the issues or now as a separate task? Go, Steph.
So today we were planning to make a release. So over the at the end of last week, tests started failing. So I reverted an end-to-end test, actually multiple end-to-end tests, but I think those are just end-to-end test implementation issues. I think we can make the release today. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know too much about the failures. I guess did they pass when as part of the PR? But yeah, if the existing tests are passing, I guess that's good enough, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, existing test is passing, but there was one fix about EKS tags. Its test was added to end-to-end test. Now I removed it. We don't have a signal for it, but it is a very small change that I can confirm that it is correct. Yeah, can go to the closed ones and search for EKS.
Yep. This one. Yep. Revert, that's it, isn't it?
Can go to fixes services for EKS clusters. EKS clusters. Fixes services for
That was the original, wasn't it? Yep. Okay.
Yes. So basically, the fix was using the correct Kubernetes cluster name for the cloud provider tag, and it looks good to me, to be frank, without the tests.
Yeah. And then what do we change in the tests?
Yeah, we had a bunch of changes in the test. Not sure where it is failing. Yeah, but it failed constantly, so there's something wrong.
Okay. Yeah, it's quite yeah, this actual fix is blocking a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I would, personally I'd be in favor of still doing the release so that people get the advantages of this fix, and then we can re-add tests after the release.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if we're going to do a release, then maybe we shouldn't do the looking at the issues now. Then, so we can call it a day. Does anyone have any final items to discuss? Going once. Hey, go for it, Abhinav.
I was just a bit curious about the GSOC project for this cohort, I guess. Do we have any kind of picture about, because I saw into a few other implementations for the open telemetry collector, and at least in case of Kibano, they already had a service which would actually provide them with the metrics. They just did not have any collector for that. For example, the open telemetry collector. But in our case, do we already have some kind of implementation where the metrics are somehow accessible in any form?
Good question. Good question. So you can obviously view the metrics via when you're in Tilt, the existing metrics, that is. So this is nothing to do with distributed tracing or anything like that. So but metrics are visible via Tilt, and I think didn't Stefan give a demo of also another feature in Tilt where it deploys Grafana as well? I can't remember. Was anyone at that CAPI office hours? No.
Yeah, he did. So yeah. So there's a good documentation in Cluster API repo about how to enable it.
Yeah. Cool. Abhinav, does that help?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
I
think Sadef, you also mentioned about existing implementation, although I'm not sure about whether or not it already had some kind of mechanism for that. But yeah, I was actually looking forward to that if the project actually goes through, because I think there are a few slots allotted for every CNCF, like a number of projects. Overall, there must be, I guess, about 16 slots. So I'm not sure what kind of priority is provided to each and every specific project. But if in case like our projects goes forward, I would still like to apply for it.
So actually we have, yeah, a couple of people reached out on the Slack and on the issue itself about GSOC. We haven't followed up pretty good with that. But yeah, this is definitely something we wanna incorporate in Kappa actually.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's the deploy observability stuff, isn't it? Cool. Brilliant. Well, I think we're at the end then, aren't we? Speak to you all in 2 weeks. Bye for now.
Thanks, Richard.